Welcome to Trinity Church of Austin. My name is Sid Hall and I'm Trinity's lead minister. We are glad that you're worshiping with us this morning. These are difficult times. In so many ways, we feel isolated. And I think in the current political climate, the coronavirus climate, the struggle that we're feeling in loneliness, the worry we have about people on the margins who seem to even be more on the margins, during this time, we are all struggling. And so it's good that we can come together. I wish that we could do it face to face. That would be so much better. But for now, because of the emergency, because of our desire to keep things safe at Trinity Church of Austin, we are holding our services virtually. Phone numbers for texting prayer requests are found below, and also you can do that right now. You don't have to wait until our prayer time to send in your prayer texts. You'll also find a downloadable order of worship. You'll find information about our various activities that are happening, how to contact us for pastoral care, and how to support Trinity financially. All those are found in the YouTube video below, and you'll find it also from time to time on the text. This week we begin a new series called We All Fall Down. And instead of hearing from me only, we'll also hear voices from other Trinity members, people in the community, both staff and laity, on how our lives have been changed by uncorded interruptions, struggles, and vulnerability in ways that we could have never imagined. But how those painful experiences have often been the very catalyst for the changes that we needed to step into a new place, a new perspective, and even a new way of living in the world. At the end of our welcome time, we will light a candle as a way to create sacred space together. If you happen to have a candle with you in your home and want to pull that out to light when the rest of us do, you're welcome to do that. Also today, we will be taking communion as we do on the first Sunday of each month. And that means that if you have elements of bread and wine or any substitute that you prefer, and I mean that, anything works, bring that out later on in the service and let those be consecrated as the bread and wine for our time of communion. We hope that you will do that. We want you to know at Trinity Church of Austin that no matter who you are, who you love, what you believe or don't believe, you are welcome here. Welcome to the celebration, my friends.
Hi, I'm Tim Brace, Director of Music at Trinity Church of Austin. I've been here at Trinity for about 9 years. For this series, for our threshold moment, we'll sing the hymn For the Beauty of the Earth with lyrics by Folliot Pierpoint and music by John Rutter. The text was written by Folliot Pierpoint, a 19th century English hymnist and poet, as an expression of the beauty of the countryside around his home in Bath, England. Originally a communion hymn, the lyrics have been modified through time to encourage its use as a more general hymn. The melody we will sing with this text is by John Rutter, a contemporary English composer and conductor, especially known for his choral music. His pieces are very popular with choirs in the United States, combining a deep knowledge of the classical choral tradition with an appreciation for American and British popular music. The Trinity community is familiar with this piece, as we've sung it many times as the opening song in our services. Please stand in body and/or spirit, and let us sing For the Beauty of the Earth.
Hi Trinity, my name is Zoe, and today I'm going to be reading you a book called Each Breath a Smile, story by Sister Susan. Dear little ones, let us sit very quietly. Listen. Listen to the wind, listen to the birds, listen to the crickets and the frogs. Listen to your breathing. Let us put our hand on our tummy and feel our breathing. Our tummy goes in and then it goes out, breathing in and breathing out. Our tummy goes in and then it goes out, breathing in and breathing out. I close my eyes and I stay with my breathing in. I close my eyes and I stay with my breathing out. It is so wonderful to feel my breath coming in. It is so wonderful to feel my breath going out. Breathing in, I calm my whole body. Breathing out, my whole body is calm. Body calm. Breathing in, I am blooming like a flower. Breathing out, I feel fresh. Flower, fresh. Breathing in, I see myself as a mountain. Breathing out, I feel solid. Mountain, solid. Breathing in, I see myself as space. Breathing out, I feel free. Space, free. Breathing in, I come back to myself. Breathing out, I smile. Breathing in, the world is so beautiful. Breathing out, I smile. The blade of grass is so green. The sky is so blue. I see that mommy is lovely. I see that daddy is wonderful. see that my sister is so kind. I see that my brother is so playful. I see that my grandma and grandpa are so sweet and gentle. I see that my classmates and my teacher make me so happy. We listen and we see. That all life is breathing with us.
Good morning. I'm Mark Moore. I'm the Associate Minister here at Trinity. And this is the time that we hear your prayers. This has always been an important part of our worship. And whether we're sitting in a circle in our sanctuary at Trinity or sitting in our living rooms at home, we'll take the time to sit with your prayers. And if you don't text your prayer to be read aloud, or we get to the end of our prayer time, feel free to type your prayer into the YouTube video chat box. I invite you now into a time and an attitude of prayer. Are there prayers now that you would offer for our lives and our community? Please text your prayers to 512-766-3123. Prayers for President Trump's recovery from COVID. Healing and joyful spirit. Receive our prayer. Continue to pray for Misha and his family as he takes treatment for leukemia. Healing and joyful spirit. Receive our prayers. Prayers of protection for Joe Biden's health. Healing and joyful spirit. Receive our prayers. Let us hold these prayers and those cradled in the silence of our hearts in a moment of silence. In this series for our prayer time, we're focusing on the meditation of creation-centered mystics. I invite you to be in a spirit of prayer as we reflect on the wisdom of Starhawk, a contemporary Wiccan priestess and activist. She writes, "Instead of closing our eyes to meditate, we need to open our eyes and observe. Unless our spiritual practice is grounded in a real connection to the natural world, we run the risk of simply manipulating our own internal imagery and missing the real communication taking place all around us. Amen.
For this series, our song of reflection is Return to God, with music and lyrics by Marty Haugen. Marty was born in Minnesota and was raised in the American Lutheran Church, yet found his first position as a church musician in a Roman Catholic parish at a time when the Roman Catholic Church was undergoing liturgical and musical changes after Vatican II. Finding a vocation in that parish to provide accessible songs for worship, he continued to compose and to study. More than 400 of his compositions have been published. He is composer in residence at Mayflower Community Congregational Church, which is affiliated with the United Church of Christ in Minneapolis. Other pieces by Haugen that we have sung here at Trinity include Gather Us In, All Are Welcome, and Wind Upon the Waters. We are grateful to Carol Lewis, Dave Robinson, and Light German for this body prayer, and to Mark Boyden for creating the video for us, and to the Trinity Choir for recording their voices and gathering virtually so we can see their faces as they sing with us. The lyrics are, Return to God with all your heart, the source of grace and mercy. Come seek the tender faithfulness of God. Please stand in body and or spirit, and let us sing together.
Return to God with all your heart, the source of grace and mercy. Come seek the tender faithfulness of God. Return to God with all your heart, the source of grace and mercy. Come seek the tender faithfulness of God.
Now is the time that we bring forth our offerings. In our worship space at Trinity, we always have two opportunities for our offerings, a wooden bowl for the support of the programs and ministries of Trinity. And Trinity remains committed to the health and well-being of the whole community. We remain committed to following the advice and guidance of health professionals and scientists, even as we yearn to embrace this beloved community, and to act in typical Trinity fashion to support those in need, those who are oppressed, and those who have been made invisible. Your support of Trinity is critical for us to meet the commitment we made to put the well-being of this whole community first in our hearts and in our actions. And that means to continue worshiping online for a while longer, and to continue paying the dedicated folks who work with our children and our hourly staff, and to making our facilities available to Hope Food Pantry and to maintain those facilities. And even though our stewardship series has passed, it's still important in this uncertain time to fill out that online pledge form to help Trinity's leadership prepare a budget for the coming year. And you'll find a link in the video description of this broadcast and also in the mailing sent to your home. Now, each week we also have a woven basket for a special offering. And this week, it's for the UCC, Our Church's Wider Mission. Our church's wider mission funds programs and resources and tools needed to keep local UCC churches effective and growing. These include seminary scholarships, anti-racism programs, mission trips, staff travel to marches and demonstrations, and much, much more. Now, there are several methods which you can use to give to Trinity today. You can visit our website at www.trinitychurchofaustin.org, and then click the support tab and scroll down that page to find all the options there. You could download Give Plus mobile app from either iTunes or Google Play. And you can also text your offering to 512-967-0292 and add the keyword special to support our church's wider mission. And if you want to give to both the general fund and the special offering, send 2 texts, one with the keyword and one without. Please send Trinity your most generous offerings today.
Good morning. My name is Joanne Holliday. I've been a member of Trinity Church of Austin for 25 years. The first reading this morning are sayings from the Gospel of Thomas. Jesus said, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." Jesus said, "If those who lead you say to you, 'See, the kingdom is in the sky,' then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, 'It is in the sea,' then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will realize that it is you who are the children of the living God. But if you will not know yourselves, you dwell in poverty, and it is you who are that poverty."
Hi, my name is Karen Hampton. I've been a member of Trinity for about 20 years. The second reading is from the Red Book by Carl Jung. Be silent and listen. Have you recognized your madness, and do you admit it? Have you noticed that all your foundations are completely mired in madness? Do you not want to recognize your madness and welcome it in a friendly manner? You wanted to accept everything, so accept madness too. Let the light of your madness shine, and it will suddenly dawn on you. Madness is not to be despised and not to be feared, but instead, you should give it life. If you want to find paths, you should also not spurn madness, since it makes up such a great part of your nature. Be glad that you can recognize it, for you will thus avoid becoming its victim. Madness is a special form of the Spirit and clings to all teachings and philosophies, but even more to daily life, since life itself is full of craziness and at bottom utterly illogical. Humanity strives toward reason only so that they can make rules for themselves. Life itself has no rules. That is the mystery and its unknown law. What you call knowledge is an attempt to impose something comprehensible on life.
One of the things that I love doing is reading a good novel. The kind that grabs you from the very beginning, takes you into this place of immediate conflict or a sense of oops, like what's going on here. And then that takes you down a rabbit trail maybe that you couldn't even anticipate. And the best of those, in the midst of that conflict, also begin to give you hints of ways that it's going to resolve itself. Glimpses of hope or possibility, of resolution. You know, I remember when my son was a young child, maybe in 4th or 5th grade, and was reading a book assignment for school. And he came in and said, "Dad, this book is stupid." I said, "Why is it stupid?" And he said, "It's boring." I said, "Why is it so boring?" And he said, there's no conflict. And I remember thinking, how in the world in 5th grade can you be that perceptive or that articulate about what you're perceiving? No surprise to me that he became a journalist. But he's right. When a story doesn't have conflict, it doesn't seem real. And I believe the reason it doesn't seem real is because in each of our own stories, it's never smooth sailing. We all fall down. Conflict enters all of our lives in some manner, whether it's a pandemic, whether it is systemic racism, policies of racism, whether it is struggles with health or relationships or identity or career, vocation. All of these things create within us a sense of angst, a conflict. And when we hear stories that don't have that element, we have this sense that it isn't real. I can't relate to it. One of the things that I find fascinating is that there are people that actually study this. When I was in seminary, I came across a preaching book called The Homiletical Plot by Eugene Lowry. And I still have that book. It's an excellent book, and he talks about how a good sermon is like a good novel. It begins with a certain point and it flows in that same fashion. You'll see on our webpage this week and also on the worship service what some are calling the Lowry Loop. And you'll notice that it starts up high and then takes a big nosedive down and then loops around and flows back out. And he labels those at the top. He labels it as, and I'll show it again, oops, where the equilibrium is upset. Then ugh, where we begin to analyze the discrepancy. And then that comes at that very base, some sort of clue to resolution. And then whee, experiencing the good news. And finally, anticipation of the consequences. When I realized that a sermon needed to be like a good novel, that it wasn't, unless it showed somehow the struggle that we're all in, it it wasn't real. It wouldn't feel authentic. The trick for me was how to share my own personal stories without it sounding like a client, without it sounding like I needed the congregation to sort of resolve it for me. I certainly did not want to be in the position of asking the congregation to be my therapist. But what I did realize, that unless I somehow wrestle with how this text or this subject pushes up against me, challenges me, touches me in those places that I struggle, that the message could not be authentic. And of course I knew, especially in reading Lowry, that the goal is not to stay in that struggle, but to find some sort of some sort of resolution, or at least a path toward resolution, something that points us toward what we can do. And I think that to do that, we all have to be willing to go inside. We can't live on the surface. We have to know what's down in the subterranean parts of our consciousness. One of the blessings that I have, unless you happen to live with me, is that I have very vivid dreams. And sometimes it scares my wife and my dog. And when my kids were still around, they would hear me yell out as well from time to time. But often in those dreams, I became aware of the places I was struggling, that my conscious life, my world above the subterranean level, had not noticed, at least consciously. And so it became an avenue for me. And so to this day, dream work is still one of my favorite ways of wrestling with conflict and of dealing with the struggles that I have. Jesus said in the Gospel of Thomas, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you." And then he warns, "If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." And folks, that was about 1900 years before C.G. Jung. Carl Jung believed that the shadow, that part of us that's buried, that part that we're not willing to deal with, ends up controlling our lives until we notice it, until we name it. And he talks about that as madness. That was a very late 19th century way of describing that disruptive turmoil aspect of ourselves. Here's what our reading said earlier that points to that. Jung writes, "Do you not want to recognize your madness and welcome it in a friendly manner? You wanted to accept everything, so accept madness too. Let the light of your madness shine, and it will suddenly dawn on you. Madness is not to be despised and not to be feared, but instead you should give it life. Madness is a special form of the Spirit and clings to all teachings and philosophies." One of the things that many of us have learned through reading and through psychotherapy is that the things that are buried are clues to our new beginnings. They tell us about the pain sometimes that has been a part of our past, but they also remind us that we found pretty brilliant ways, often and mostly unconscious, to survive. And that sometimes they don't work anymore, but unless we come to see them for what they are, we can't move past them. We can't go to the next place. I think about how addiction is like that for many people. They know that it is destructive. They know that it hurts their lives, and it seems to have a grip on them that is very powerful and can sometimes even kill them. But once that begins to be acknowledged, once it begins to be named as their madness, as their addiction, they can also begin to see that maybe they began doing that for very good reasons. Maybe without the tools of how to cope with certain conditions in life, that it was the thing that they came up with to survive the moment, to survive the hour, to survive abuse or struggle or neglect or whatever it is. And so even though it's seen as a bad thing, a scary thing, as a destructive thing, the reason it's there, at least for some people, is that it was the way that they learned to survive. And once they identify that, then they can begin to say, this doesn't work anymore. In fact, it is doing the opposite of what it originally did. It is killing me. And there needs to be something else that replaces it. Some other gift, some other coping skill that leads me forward. But until you name that, and you see it as something inside of you that is not to be feared, but to be named, then you can't move on with that. To some extent, I think that for me, anger was like that. My dad was a conflicted man. He deeply loved, but he also deeply raged. And as the oldest, I wanted to please him and tried to do what I could to please him, and it was often difficult. I realized at some point as an adult that I don't think he even heard himself when he set off. And of course, as a teenager, as someone who saw the harm that did around me, I set out to not be like that. I was going to be a nice guy. And that was my main mantra. I'm not going to be like my dad. But, it's a strange thing. When you get into relationships, when you get into the difficult places of stress, when you find times in work that isn't working, you tap into reservoirs that you had forgotten were there. And one of them, for me, was anger. I hated people that flew off the handle. And it was even worse when I did myself. But I did. And I didn't like that. And instead of dismissing it and saying, oh, that's just my dad, I had to name that was me. That madness was a part of myself as well. And so, for me, that was a way of recognizing how I had fallen down on myself, and fallen down on even the goals and values that I set forth to live by. And so, one of the things that I remember early on at Trinity, I had an intern who preached a pretty controversial sermon. And believe it or not, in my early days, I was pretty careful. I was trying to build trust and not wanting to push the envelope too much until that trust was built. And so I tried to not create too much alarm in my sermons. I was waiting, but at the time I wasn't doing that. And my intern preached an Ash Wednesday service. And Ash Wednesday is often a time that you name the sins. And if you focus on the individual, you name the individual sins. But she did, like a good social justice advocate, she named the social sins of our time. And for her, there in the late 1980s, she named the sin of racism, the sin of homophobia, and the sin of colonialism. And I could see with each illustration and each very personal, powerful story that she gave, the congregation was growing just a little more uncomfortable at each layer. And then when she got to colonialism, she pulled out a letter written by the Central Conference of Churches written to the then new president, George H.W. Bush. And that letter talked about the U.S. involvement in Central America and its political pressure on overthrowing governments and creating terrorism. All things that I knew was true and believed in and felt was a sin and needed to be named. But when she named our president by name by reading that letter and used their language of calling him the devil, we had people walk out of the service. Now, the next week happened to be a worship committee meeting. And I went to that meeting, and it was obvious when I got there that they had met before I had gotten there for an hour to talk about that service, which enraged me. Now, I was willing to let my intern dish out something that could provoke people, but I wasn't at a place in my own maturity to allow for being provoked myself. And so as they told me what their frustration was and their particular anger was toward me and my lack of discernment in allowing something like this to occur, I got defensive and began rattling off how everything she said was right. And I kept going and going. And then I noticed that no one was asking me any questions, that they were all just staring at me. And then a little voice came inside my head that said, "Sid, you've messed up." And I realized that it wasn't really about the subject that was being talked about. I still believed what I believed, and I still thought my intern was right in her perceptions. The methodology may not have been wise, but even less wise was my reactivity to their reaction. And after the meeting, I felt awful. I felt like I had blown it. How could they trust me as a leader if I was going to be that kind of reactivity in their midst? They needed a pastor whom they could trust, and I just let them know that I was not that pastor. So that night I called the chairperson and I told her that I am so sorry that I messed up, and asked her if she thought it was appropriate for me to call all the members and apologize. And she said a most loving thing. She said, "Sid, we all fall down. We all make mistakes. And we all deserve a second chance. And we know you're trying, and you have a lot of hard work to do, and you're helping this church grow, and we appreciate that. I'll call them. Don't worry about it." And I didn't. And they didn't worry about it after that either. At least they didn't tell me. And I remember that as a growing moment, as that place where the oops had occurred and I became aware of it. And there was a ugh that followed the oops, where I felt desperate. But the ah came, that place where resolution needed to happen, not from my own action, but from the reconciling nature of that chairperson. And that then allowed for me to have the space to grow. I know that there were times after that my anger went off. God knows my children saw that. And it's something that I've worked on. I now know that that is not something that belonged to someone else, like my father. I see him as human in a way that I didn't then. I know some of the conflicts and the struggles and the pain that he had to work through to overcome, where that originated. I didn't know that then. And so I think being an adult and maturing and growing allows us to see things in a deeper way than we did before. Jesus said, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. Even if it's anger, even if it's addiction, even if it's the parts of ourselves that we'd rather leave to someone else and not own up to. This series, in this time of pandemic, as we enter the fall, as we enter the time of letting go, seems like an appropriate time to hear some of the same kinds of stories from our members and other staff, to share how sometimes the very thing that has brought the most pain and conflict in our life can be an opportunity to see things differently, to move to we, to move to yeah, to take that loop down and out and into a wholeness that we never knew before. So I invite you to join with me in this journey, to tune in each week as we hear different stories, as we provide an opportunity in this community to recognize that we all fall down, but we all also, as we bring forth that is from within, we all have the opportunity to make ourselves and our community of Trinity Church and our world more whole. Amen.
Join me now in the responsive words of our playful communion liturgy. And though our table may be virtual for a time, all are welcome. This is a table for the breaking of the fast that comes from the stuff of life. This is a place where there's plenty good room. This is a space where love is in charge of the guest list and reservations aren't required. Breakfast is ready. The sun has risen. The Spirit hovers. So come just as you are, you who have all the hope you need, and you who keep running out, and you have only questions, and you who have only one answer. Breakfast is ready. The sun has risen, and the Spirit enfolds. So come just as you can, you who have been here forever, and you who have gone missing for a very long time. Breakfast is ready. The sun has risen, and the Spirit indwells. So come just as the Creator made you. You have nothing to offer that isn't God's own. Pull up a chair. The grace is amazing. Makes a body feel at home. Breakfast is ready. The sun has risen. The Spirit dances in all. Let us pray. Make us bread. Knead us well. Help us rise. For bacon, eggs, and buttered toast, praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Make us bread. Knead us well, help us rise. For bagels, beans, and chili roast, praise Mother, Sophia, and Heavenly Host. Make us bread. Knead us well, help us rise. I invite you now to share with each other, wherever you are, with whatever you have, the bread of life and the cup of blessing.
let us say thanks. Thanks be to you, Holy One, for you show us your love in simple things. Help us be the simple signs of love to all we meet and to all we seek to serve. Amen.
Our song of response today is One Bread, One Body, with lyrics and music by John Foley. Father Foley is an American Jesuit priest, one of a group of Jesuit priests, the St. Louis Jesuits, known for their contributions to liturgical music since the 1970s, especially music that pulls from folk music styles. He has degrees from St. Louis University and also studied at the Royal Conservatory of Music in Toronto. About this music, he says, it was just after Vatican II and guitars started to be allowed in services. I got someone to show me a few chords and I thought, well, they need music, so let's go. Other popular pieces from this group include Earthen Vessels and Here I Am, Lord. The lyrics are based primarily on Paul's first letter to the Corinthians and focus on the communion community as one body gathered together. Please stand in body and/or spirit, and let us sing together. One bread, one body, one God of all, one cup of blessing which we bless, and we, the many, throughout the earth, we are one body and there's one God. Gentile or Jew, servant or free, woman or man, no more. One bread, one body, one God of all, one cup of blessing which we bless, and with the many throughout the earth, we are one body and there's one God. Many the gifts, many the works, one in the God of all. One bread, one body, one God of all, one cup of blessing which we bless, and with the many throughout the earth, we are one body and there's one God. Grain for the fields, scattered and grown, gathered to one for all. One bread, one body, one God of all, one cup of blessing which we bless, and we, the many, throughout the earth, we are one body and there's one
Hey Trinity, it's Gus, one of your pastoral interns. I'm up here in New York and the weather's getting cold. Got some really nice long underwear, and I'm missing being there in Austin with all you guys. We moved up here to be close to my in-laws in this crazy time of the apocalypse. I'm hoping for a time when I can see you again. And so is the rest of our family. Before our service ends, I have a few announcements to let you know what's going on in the life of the community. First, as always, you can reach out for Pastoral Care at Sid's cell phone directly, which is down in the description of this video, or you can reach out to email at pastoralcare@trinitychurchofaustin.org. That's also down in the description. And that email goes to myself, Mark, Sid, and Joe, just the pastoral staff. Also, we're still in stewardship season, and we need your commitment to put together our annual budget and continue our programs and ministries. You can fill out the pledge form online via the link down below in the description, or look in the weekly email. We need your pledge of time, talent, or treasure, or all three, to keep this great community going. Let's see, there's one more update I have, which is the virtual coffee with Sid. That's still going on Thursday mornings at 10:30 a.m. And that's, if you want to get the link to how to join that, you can email office@trinitychurchofaustin.org. That's all I have for the announcements, and now we're going to hand it over to a special message from the United Methodist Women's Group and the Central Texas Interfaith Program.
Hello everyone, I'm Leanne Taki, the president of Trinity United Methodist Women here at Trinity. Every year, the United Methodist Women honors one or more people who have gone the extra mile to promote mission and activities in our church. Today we are honoring Janet Cook and Christine Major. We are presenting them with a pin and making an undesignated gift through mission to the Women's Division in their name. Thank you for all you do. We are fortunate to have you in our group.
I'm Kathleen Davis, a member of Trinity for the past 12 years, and I'm inviting you to join me in a Get Out the Vote effort with Austin Interfaith, also known now as Central Texas Interfaith. If you're like me, the upcoming November 3rd election is becoming more critical every day. And when there's so much we can't do, participating in this Get Out the Vote effort is something we can do. The effort is nonpartisan. We don't tell people how to vote, but we do endorse issues, including COVID-19 response, rental assistance, wages and workforce, housing and homelessness, criminal justice, immigration reform, healthcare access, climate change, quality education. You can participate by signing up now to support the Central Texas Interfaith agenda of issues through your vote in the upcoming election by signing on the Austin Interfaith website, austininterfaith.org. You can sign up family, friends, co-workers, and neighbors as well on this agenda and get the link to the website to them. Another way we can participate is to increase voting in this precinct where Trinity sits, Precinct 274. We have lists of low propensity voters, not those who vote all the time or never, but those who vote sometimes. And we want to do phone calling to encourage them to vote and increase voting that way. You can reach me through my cell phone and my email address that I think are appearing on a slide on the screen and are in the Trinity Church newsletter. I look forward to working with those of you who will join me.
And now, may the peace of God go with us. May the power of God sustain us. And may the love of God keep us together forever. Amen.
He shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace.
The mountains and the hills will break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy. All the trees of the field will clap their hands. And all the trees of the field will clap their hands. Trees of the field will clap their hands. Trees of the field will clap their hands while you go out with joy. You shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills will break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy. All the trees of the field will clap their hands. And all the trees of the field will clap their hands. Trees of the field will clap their hands. Trees of the field will clap their hands while you go out with joy.